There is growing fear in this country about AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. The mortality rate of the disease is extremely high. 80% of the victims reported in the past 2 years have died. The high-risk categories include homosexual men, intravenous drug users, Haitians, and hemophiliacs. These groups are being subjected to increasing public rejection. But Dr. Edward Brandt of the U.S. Public Health Service said today that is not justified. He pointed out that the disease can be spread in only 3 ways: sexual contact, use of contaminated needles, and through the use of blood and blood products. Joan Snyder reports that one of the places where the fear of AIDS is growing is New York State prisons.
Raul Rodriguez is in a New York State prison, serving time for robbery. But he doesn't know how much time he has left, in or out of prison.
Let me go. Let me go die among my family.
Rodriguez has AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which breaks down the body's natural defenses against disease. Cause unknown, no cure yet found. Tuberculosis has struck his weakened body. He spends most of his time alone in a prison infirmary. Rodriguez used to shoot drugs into his arm, a high-risk category for AIDS. It's believed the syndrome can be transmitted through blood on shared needles. There have been 39 cases of AIDS among New York State prisoners in the past few years. Nearly half have died. Officials say that nearly all the New York State prisoners who contracted AIDS had been intravenous drug users before being jailed, and that there's no evidence of anyone catching AIDS while in prison. But in the enclosed setting of prison, what has spread rapidly is fear among inmates and the corrections officers who guard them.
Get these people out of the jail. It's going to cost lives one way or another. We're either going to die from AIDS, or these people are going to kill us or something. Get them out of the jail. That's the answer. Get them out.
A corrections officer at a meeting called by state prison officials to try to relieve anxiety among prison workers with medical information. Officials stress that there is no evidence that AIDS can be transmitted through air or casual contact, that all available evidence points to transmission through sexual contact or blood.
And the information that we have is that unless you have that close contact, there needs to be no fear about obtaining or giving entrance to that agents to our body.
Once you have AIDS, you're going to die.
An inmates liaison committee representing prisoners at New York's downstate prison, where there have been AIDS patients in the infirmary.
There is no way right now that they can tell you how you catch AIDS. They have ideas. They're checking them out, but they cannot say.
So, and I think that the people have to put pressure on the legislators and the politicians to devise a place for these people to be kept other than in the jails, a separate, isolated facility.
The transfer of AIDS patients out of state prisons may come about. Prison officials have announced they are trying to find one hospital in which all the prisoners with AIDS could be kept for their own medical benefit. There are no definite plans yet. Officials say they have to be sure such a hospital would have adequate security. At present, state and city prisoners with AIDS are treated at various New York hospitals when they require special care. For Carlos Santiago, AIDS has led to a devastating case of pneumonia.
I was a drug user. And that could be the only possible way. Never read a Bible, and I'm doing it now, but it's probably it's helping me. You know, everything that you go through is like a nightmare.
A number of state prisoners with AIDS have been treated at the Westchester County Medical Center. Dr. Gary Wormser, Chief of Infectious Diseases, has done research into AIDS.
Casual contact with an inmate, such as talking to an inmate, sitting in the same room, standing next to an inmate, we don't think that any of those activities would lead to a spread of AIDS. However, if there would be exposure to bodily fluids or blood, or, for example, if an inmate would bite an officer, that might be a high-risk situation.
Corrections officers who guard prisoners at the hospital asked for and received special protective outfits to use should they have to subdue a prisoner with AIDS. Officer Chris Viteri demonstrated the outfit for us.
It protects us approximately 100% of our body from scratches, bites, urine, If he spits at us.
But the officers, like Roger King, wish they could have something more.
Guarantees that we're not going to catch it. I'd like to see that.
Do you expect it?
No. No way.
Raul Rodriguez and 2 other state prisoners with AIDS have filed suit to be transferred out of prison into a hospital. He says he wants more care and closeness to his family.
And we're on 23 hours isolation. You know, we get an hour recreation, that's it. It's like, you know, we have a big tag on our chest, man. It says leverage, you know. Keep back.
He's been told the isolation is to protect him from infections, but he says being alone gives him too much time to think.
I think the worst thing in the world that could ever happen to any human being is to die in prison. That's rough. I may have 6 months, I may have 6 years. They may find a cure for it tomorrow, who knows?
That hope is all that victims of the syndrome have right now, whether AIDS imprisons them inside or outside of jail. Joan Snyder, CBS News, Downstate Prison, New York.